Most conversations about retirement tend to focus on how much you need, but there's another part of the conversation that's just as important: how much the timing of your retirement completely transforms the income your portfolio can generate. Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to walk through 4 real scenarios. Someone retiring at 50 using Rule 72T, someone retiring at 55 using the Rule of 55, someone retiring at a more traditional 60, and someone retiring at 67, full retirement age. All using the same starting balance, the same contributions, the same portfolio, just different timing. And by the end, you'll see how timing sets the income you get for the rest of your life. Before we jump into the different retirement scenarios, I want to give you a quick overview of the portfolio we're going to be using as the baseline for this entire video. This investor keeps things simple, with 60% in the S&P 500, 30% in 10-year U.S. Treasuries, and 10% in gold. This mix is balanced, resilient, and historically very stable during major market shocks. And when you look at its performance from 2007 through 2024, a period that includes the Great Financial Crisis, a global pandemic, historic inflation, and the 2022 double bear market, it still delivers strong long-term compounding. Here's the full table of annual returns so you can see exactly how this portfolio behaved year by year. And as I said, this is the baseline portfolio we're going to use for every example in this video. We'll assume that our investor is 50 in 2007, and at that point, they have $500,000 in this portfolio. The reason I'm using that age is that by the time they get to 2024, I want to be able to say their full retirement age, or 67. Now let's look at what happens if our investor decides to step away from the workforce at age 50. Retiring early and attempting to access your traditional retirement accounts prior to retirement age of 59 and a half normally triggers early penalties. However, there is a way around this with a very specific IRS rule called 72T. This allows you to touch those traditional accounts without any sort of early penalty. But there is a catch. You have to commit to a schedule called Substantially Equal Periodic Payments, or SEPP. Here's what it means in plain English. If you follow this plan, you can take penalty-free withdrawals from your traditional account, but you have to use one of the 3 IRS-approved formulas. You can follow an RMD schedule, a annuitization schedule, or an amortization schedule. In this situation, we're going to use an RMD schedule. Once you start, you must continue for 5 years or until age 59 and a half, whichever is longer. If you attempt to change the schedule or stop taking your payments, the IRS introduces penalties. And it's not just a one-time penalty. They retroactively introduce penalties on every single withdrawal you previously took. And because we're using the RMD method, your withdrawal amount recalculates every year. In this case, our withdrawals will start out smaller and gradually increase over time because our investment portfolio continues to grow as it remains invested. So for this scenario, our investor starts with $500,000 at the age of 50. They make no additional contributions to this account and only withdraws the required annual amount under SEPP rules. When it comes to the Rule of 72T or SEPP payments, it is very specific. You can only take that specified amount. No more, no less. I do have an entire video dedicated to this that I can link above and down below, but just know if you follow this schedule, it is very strict. Here is the full schedule of withdrawals and portfolio balances from age 50 through age 58. What's important to notice is that even though they're withdrawing money every year, the portfolio still has room to grow because the withdrawals are relatively modest. By age 58, this investor ends with a balance of about $691,000, despite taking income from the account for nearly a decade. As you can see in our example here, the payments provided under 72T are quite modest, and in this situation, this retiree cannot adjust their withdrawals up or down because the schedule they are following is fixed by the IRS. If they attempt to change this schedule, they will face penalties. In most real-world situations, someone retiring at 50 with this type of portfolio would need other income sources. Maybe that's part-time income, maybe it's consulting work or side gig work, Maybe they have another account they could draw on. Maybe that's a traditional brokerage account, but they would likely need to supplement this SEPP schedule in order to meet all of their early retirement income needs. If your goal is to have 72T fund your entire lifestyle in early retirement, you'd likely need to go into this early retirement with a much more robust portfolio. Now, depending on the individual structure of your SEPP plan, a retiree may or may not need to take a payment in the year they turn 59. In this situation, we're going to assume that that payment is not required because once you hit the age of 59 and a half and you've met the 5-year or longer window following the SEPP schedule, you no longer have to take withdrawals and you have unrestricted access to this account. And once you have full unrestricted access to this account, you don't have to take a specified amount every year. You don't have to worry about penalties. You get to take as much or as little as you wish. You sort of get to create your own schedule at that point. There's no restrictions. At this point, we're going to assume our retiree transitions to a safe withdrawal rate. In this video, we're going to use 4.7%. Applying that rate to the portfolio balance of $691,000, their new income would be about $32,000 a year. Now, even though at age 59 and a half, they can now access this account freely, our retiree is still too young for Social Security. So whether or not this amount is enough to cover all of their spending needs, well, that depends on their situation. So if they need more income to bridge the gap between this income and their spending needs, they might need to continue with part-time work. And in a few years, once Social Security kicks in, our retiree may no longer need any additional income, at which point, from their portfolio and Social Security alone, all of their expenses may be covered. Again, it depends on their spending level. Retiring at 50 is absolutely possible, but your income at that age is going to be determined by the SEPP formula, not your lifestyle preferences. Rule 72T is a great way to get penalty-free access to a traditional account long before the age of 59 and a half. But it does work best when paired with another method to introduce some level of flexibility, whether that's part-time work or having a brokerage account that you could draw on without having to be limited to a specific dollar amount withdrawal. Otherwise, you're solely dependent on an SEPP schedule, which is very inflexible. This strategy is really designed to preserve long-term solvency, not to maximize spending. It's structured and disciplined and a way to access these accounts at an extremely early age, but still best paired with other income sources. Now let's look at what retirement can look like at age 55. And here the rules change dramatically. If you leave an employer at age 55 or later, the IRS gives you a special exception called the Rule of 55. This allows you to access money from that employer's 401k or 403b penalty-free. No 10% early withdrawal penalty, no 72 schedule, no multi-year commitment to fixed payments. A few important things to keep in mind. It only applies to employer plans, not IRAs. It only applies to the plan of the employer you left, and it gives you full flexibility in how much you withdraw and when. So for this scenario, we're going to assume that our investor at the age of 50 had that same $500,000 invested, the same portfolio, a 60-30-10 split, and we are going to assume that as they continued to work for 5 additional years, they continued to contribute to this investment account. They put away $1,000 a month. Here's what their portfolio grows to from age 50 through age 55. A reminder that they were adding $12,000 a year as they continued working for these additional 5 years. By the time they reach age 55, their portfolio has grown to almost $820,000. And because they qualify for the Rule of 55, they now have full penalty-free access to their employer's plan. There's no formula they have to follow, no restrictions on how and when they can take this money. They have full access to this account like any other traditional retiree. For income, we're going to apply a 4.7% safe withdrawal rate, which is a sustainable, research-backed approach for long-term retirement planning. With a balance of nearly $820,000, this 4.7% withdrawal rate gives them an annual income of about $38,500 per year. So by retiring at 55, our retiree is able to pull roughly double the income from their portfolio than if they had retired at age 50. And the reason is simple. You give your portfolio 5 extra years of compounding, you continue making contributions for those additional 5 years, you're able to apply a safe withdrawal rate rather than an IRS rule. Quite simply, you're not bound by a rigid formula. Working an additional 5 years, continuing to add to your investments, allowing them to recover from a major market tumble in 2008, gives you a stronger income from your portfolio. Now, with a portfolio that's producing $38,000 or $39,000 a year, you might decide that you still want to pick up some side work and still have some supplemental income. Or maybe you decide to move to a lower cost of living area of the country, or maybe you move to an entirely different country with a much lower cost of living than the United States. At this income level, you might need to find some creative ways in order to make this income stretch further, because at the age of 55, you're not yet eligible for Social Security. You can't claim early until the age of 62, and if you're thinking about waiting until full retirement age, well, that's all the way up until the age of 67. So until you reach an age of eligibility for Social Security, you can't yet layer in this added benefit. The big takeaway is this: giving your portfolio 5 additional years of growth has a very real impact on the baseline income you can safely withdraw. Those extra years plus ongoing contributions dramatically amplify the income your portfolio can support. Now let's look at what retirement could look like at age 60. This is a very common retirement age and still considered a fairly early retirement. Again, we're still using the same baseline scenario. At the age of 50, our investor had $500,000 invested in this 60-30-10 portfolio. In this situation, though, they've continued working an additional 10 years and continued contributing to this account. Here's what their portfolio would grow to from age 50 through age 60. By the time they reach the age of 60, their balance has grown to nearly $1.4 million. And since they're not relying on any sort of special IRS rules at this age, stepping away from the workforce at 60 means they have full, unfettered access to their traditional retirement accounts. No penalties, they can simply use a normal, safe withdrawal rate. And in this video, that's 4.7%. So with a balance of about $1.37 million and a 4.7% withdrawal rate, that provides an annual income of about $64,000 per year. And remember, that's just the income coming from the portfolio utilizing a safe rate of withdrawal. This retiree is not yet eligible for Social Security. Early access to Social Security starts at 62, but they may decide to delay claiming. Ultimately, when they do claim Social Security, though, that will layer right on top of the income from their portfolio and make their income more robust. What's really remarkable here is how 5 additional working years almost doubles the income that was available at age 55 from the portfolio. Those final years right before you step into retirement are often the most powerful when it comes to your portfolio in terms of growth. Once you already have a sizable balance, and in our example, our investor had $500,000 at the age of 50, the combination of contributions, market recovery, and compounding can be dramatic. In just about 7 years, their account essentially doubled and crossed well into the 7-figure range. And this is the power of giving markets time to recover after years like 2008. Having a balanced portfolio, dollar cost averaging through periods of volatility, and most importantly, staying invested during major rebounds. When you allow compounding to work uninterrupted throughout your working career and extend that working career a little bit, you can dramatically change the income your portfolio can provide. Now let's look at what happens when our investor continues working and continues contributing all the way until the age of 67. This is the full earning window paired with the full power of long-term compounding. Here's what their portfolio grew to from age 50 through age 67. By age 67, their portfolio has grown to about $2.7 million. And applying the same 4.7% withdrawal rate, this balance now generates about $127,000 per year in income. And at this point, they would also be eligible for full Social Security benefits. This is where the message really becomes clear. Working until the age of 60 and allowing compounding interest to work for an additional 17 years really explodes your income potential. Here's how the portfolio withdrawal income progressed across each retirement age. At age 50, it was about $14,000 per year, but heavily restricted and bound to an SEPP schedule, and it did vary throughout the years. Age 55, it was about $38,500 per year. At age 60, it was about $64,000 per year. And at age 67, that income increased to about $127,000 per year. These are really life-changing differences, and remember, they all come from a portfolio that started at the same point at age 50, $500,000 invested at the age of 50. These scenarios really highlight how powerful time, consistent contributions, market recovery, and steady compounding can be. The longer your money stays invested, the more dramatically your potential retirement income expands. But it's important to state this clearly. The goal is not to work the longest and build up the biggest portfolio possible. The goal of this video is simply to illustrate a range of incomes that are possible depending on when you choose to retire and how long you choose to leave your money invested. And this is just one example. Someone who saves more aggressively may have a more robust portfolio balance at the age of 50 and may be able to retire entirely without any sort of supplemental income. Someone else might reach full financial independence at the age of 55. Others might prefer to work until the age of 60 or 67 simply because they value their job or they value more comfort and security in their retirement. They want a more robust portfolio. If you're an aggressive saver aiming for early retirement, there are fantastic tools available, like Rule 72T or the Rule of 55 that allow you to access traditional retirement accounts earlier than age 59 and a half. Those tools can make early retirement entirely achievable. But it's also true, the longer you leave your money invested, the more compounding tilts in your favor. Ultimately, the right retirement age is where your portfolio is strong enough to support your lifestyle and your financial goals. Whether that's giving to future generations, travel, just flexibility, or simply peace of mind, and where you still have the time and the health to enjoy the life you're planning for. There's no single right age, there's no single right dollar amount. There's the number that works for you and the time that works for you based on your goals. So what's your plan? How do you relate to these prospective retirement ages? Do you think one is better than the other? I'd love to hear your thoughts in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye. That's where I'm getting at. I'm saying 10-year. I'm not saying 10%. I was right this whole time. It's rare, so enjoy it when it happens. Your traditional retirement accounts would traditionally, well, I'm not going to say traditionally twice. Not going to do it. Let's clean up the sentences. Someone is using a leaf blower across the street, and if you know me, you know how I hate noise. Nothing's worse than the sound of machines. Like, seriously. My brother is doing a TED Talk, and I just got to review his speech. I'm so proud of him. He's so smart. He's so brilliant. I love him. How much or how when. I heard it. I'm so sorry. You hear it, don't you?